I love Sundays. It's a time when I actually get a chance to smell a cup of coffee. Hazelnut is my favorite. I go on long bike rides with my friends. And I spend the afternoon hanging out with my family. But there was a time when I hated Sundays. In fact, I would stay in bed as late as I could in hopes it would delay the upcoming Monday. Granted, with 5 dogs, the demands that they have, that's not going to take, I won't be able to stay in bed long. But when I did get up, and throughout the day, I would experience a loss of appetite and high anxiety when I even thought about the upcoming work week. You see, I felt like I worked in a combat zone, where I would literally experience verbal abuse, and I would see my colleagues leave the manager's office in tears, and I witnessed spiteful gossip that just tore apart the morale in the workplace, when all I desired was to be valued and appreciated for my contributions. Ladies and gentlemen, this was my life working for destructive leaders early in my professional career. Now, many of us have probably worked for constructive and or destructive leaders in our careers. We can probably agree that someone who is constructive, they inspire, they have integrity, they're ethical, and they empower followers. Contrary to that is your destructive leaders. But let's put this into context. This is not somebody who's had an occasional bad day, because I'm sure we've all had those. But this is someone who demonstrates destructive behaviors that are purposefully meant to harm the organization and employees for their own personal gain. We've heard these individuals called workplace bullies or abusive supervisors because they've belittled, they manipulate, micromanage, use coercion and condescension to intimidate and control their employees. If you think about it, bullying's become so pervasive in our education system, there are now campaigns and laws to protect the victims. So why is it not taken this seriously in our workplace today? Shockingly, destructive leaders will victimize 40 to 50% of the workforce. And in doing so, they're going to cost U.S. corporations in the upwards of $25 billion annually. This is because of legal fees, high turnover, absenteeism, and high medical claims when employees who are experiencing extreme anxiety, high levels of stress, and depression because they worked in a toxic work environment. Come on, folks, we should be outraged by these statistics. I am, and I was. So I was inspired to do research, and I conducted a study where I interviewed millennials who have worked for destructive leaders in their careers. And in listening to their stories during the interviews, you can hear the pain in which they talked about how they were called names and ridiculed by their managers. Their managers actually told them that they needed to be controlled, teams that resembled functioning alcoholics. Fistfights that went on during team meetings. Some who lied out of fear, but only became a comedy of errors. And then some who lost professional credibility. This generation of followers is greatly impacted by destructive leaders. And in our society, we are inundated with news of leaders who are unethical, who lie, steal, and cheat, with little to no consequences for their behaviors. This was confirmed in my study where the destructive leaders who adversely impacted the followers were not punished for their behavior, but surprisingly, they were promoted because upper management only considered the results with disregard for the means. Most often, employees will leave an organization that does not address the destructive behavior. They find the names and faces do change the new organizations, but sadly, over time, they find the destructive behaviors still exist. Leaders are not successful on their own, and according to Padella, Hogan, and Kaiser, who are some accomplished researchers in this space, they found that destructive leaders in particular are successful when the organization and followers enable their behaviors. I'm intrigued by our society, where we make excuses for destructive behaviors. We've heard these stories because they've become common in our workforce, where that guy Johnny, he has a temper. That's just the way he is. Or Susie, she's very condescending, but don't take it personal, come on. Research does state that those who are abused will most likely become an abuser in the future. But I'm of the mindset that we actually have a choice in the matter. And as somebody who's worked for destructive leaders, I made a decision not to become the product of my environment, but I chose to be a constructive leader and a courageous follower in my career. Now, we can probably agree that the field of leadership is a billion-dollar industry, right? Think about it. We are reading books, we're taking seminars and classes on how to become leaders. But I believe we've missed one vital step in this process. To teach somebody to be a leader before you teach them how to be a follower is no different than expecting somebody to run before they can walk. I witnessed this firsthand on a trip to Peru, where I was teaching a team building class to business professionals, college students, universities, and small communities. The organization that sponsored this trip had developed a relationship with a group of underprivileged women who were being taught how to be leaders in their communities. And they were very successful as individuals, and they wanted to start a bakery together. But in doing so, they were failing miserably, and they didn't understand why. As I observed their disagreements, it was always over the leadership position, because in their culture, a follower was considered insignificant. They didn't understand the vital role of being a follower in a team effort. It was through continued team-building exercises and followership training that helped them understand the role of the follower, and they were successful today as far as a bakery. I share this story to demonstrate that as a society, we have not prepared our future generation of leaders because we neglected to teach them how to be great followers. I understand there's the stigma that someone who's a follower is passive and subservient, and they're not ever going to make a good leader. But according to Irish LF, there are two key facts to remember about followership. One, it is a role and not someone's personality. Two, the follower is not there to serve the leader, but they're both there to serve a common purpose. Research and education on followership is quite nascent, considering the many years we've studied leadership. And we've studied some great leaders who have also been great followers. For instance, Aristotle, Thomas Jefferson, Indra Nooyi, Mary Barra, and Tim Cook. By 2018, 40% of the workforce will be the millennial generation, and we have not prepared them to be active and courageous followers in their careers. What is a courageous follower? According to Shalef, a courageous follower is somebody who has the courage to serve, to challenge, participate in transformation, take moral action, and the courage to speak up to leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, I have 3 challenges for you today. The first challenge is to become educated and understand the types of destructive behaviors and decide how those are going to be addressed within your organizations today. The high turnover of employees is costing you more in the long term than to remove that destructive leader. Think about it. I find it hard to believe that anybody in this audience today would be excited to work for a bully every day. The second challenge goes out to the millennials in the audience. Do you want to be the generation that makes a positive and significant impact in our future today, in our society today? I challenge you to take responsibility in your role as a follower and be a great follower, who will in turn be a great leader. And in doing so, we will minimize the number of destructive leaders in our society today. And my final challenge goes out to those who are currently serving as leaders in organizations. It is time to take followership seriously and to educate people on how to be successful in this role. Today, the Naval Academy, Microsoft, Google, and many Ivy League schools are doing just that. They're educating employees and students on followership. So I ask, why is your organization not embrace followership today? Thank you.